Hello, everyone. Welcome to the official ScaleupStream podcast. I'm your host, Hugh Seth, and joining us today is Fatima Naqinia and William Cering, Manager of Financial Services at Lincoln Financial Group. It's a pleasure to have you two on today. I'm really excited. I mean, this is something new here. We have a whole panel going on, so I'm just pumped for this recording here. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, we're doing great. I'm excited to get going today, and then I hope that what I have to share with people, they'll find beneficial in what they're doing in their business startups and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hugh. Hugh, I'm great to be here. I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, I'm excited as well.
So many interesting things to share with people.
I always love that energy, Fatima. So I'm pumped along with you. So let's dive in. But
I'm going to stop you there for a minute because maybe some of your viewers can help us, because I know Fatima has a lot of good positive energy, and I've been trying to figure out how to bottle it. Because if I could, we would be billionaires. So if any of your listeners out there have any ideas on how to do that, I would love to hear it. They can email you after the show.
for sure. We'll make sure to get to that. Okay. Well,
okay.
Thank you guys again. Well, let's start with something a little bit more light. And I know this could be a bit deep regardless, but I want to know how have your journey been as a financial advisor, and what does it mean to be a financial advisor? If you guys can answer that for me.
Yeah, so I'll kick that one off. And for me, it's been kind of scary at times. And, and the reason being is, I been doing this for over 20 years. Huey, I've seen what successful people have done, and I've seen what not so successful people have done, right? And really, it's the small things, right? Making decisions maybe just to save a little extra money, and making the right investment choices, right? Not chasing pets.com. I always go back when I first got in this business. Pets.com was a big thing, and my wife was working there at the time, getting those stock options to start up. And I remember she came home one day to tell me a little bit about the business model, and I'm kind of looking at it and I go, I don't know if this whole thing's going to work, because the way I'm looking at it, people are going to be paying 3 times the amount of dog food than if they just went down to the grocery store and picked it up, because it's a shipping cost, right? So great. And obviously, 6, 7, 8 months later, when the tech bubble burst in 2000, 2001, we all saw what happened. And, those kinds of things keep me up at night when people take their hard-earned money and their investments that they're relying on, for retirement and so forth, that, kind of get squandered by other people. So those things, concern me. And honestly, I have a great passion to help people win and succeed in retirement. And I believe that that's my mission in life. Because I remember going to college at San Jose State, it's, get the degree, you're going to go out, take over the world, and, get the house, get married, have kids young, and I went down that rabbit hole, right? And it's not as easy, as, people say, right? Or what's kind of described to you, or the belief is when you grow up. So, again, seeing, what successful people have done and not so successful people, I just try to mesh all that together, right? And hope that I can put something together for people to help them win and succeed going into retirement.
Yeah, for me, Hugh, it was for sure very interesting and so much learning during the time that I wanted to be a financial advisor. To the time that I got to be a financial advisor, right? I've been in the journey for a few years, and being a woman, and especially coming from a non-U.S. background, it was not easy to break, to break the barriers to get into the field. So I got lucky enough that Will's team actually invited me to join and get my licenses. And since then, it's been a really, really interesting and very fulfilling journey for me. With all the challenges, I'm so happy to be in the team with Will. Yeah,
for sure. So now we could dive into something that I think is necessary to ask, because this is a hot question right now, and who better to ask than a couple of experts, right? So I'm going to take this opportunity while I have it. And what I want to know is, it's more so along the lines of executive bonus plans, right? And why is it overlooked and so forth. So if you guys would like to answer that question for me, I think this is a really good one to start off with.
Yeah, I think Will is the right person to answer the question, but I just wanted to give like an overview why we decided to talk about that. So if you remember, so I'm getting into these startups programs with many new founders, and I've been asked a lot that what are the best ways to figure it out when they want to invite a new executive or co-founder into their team. What are the ways that they can protect themselves, or they can hire and retain and reward their top talented executives. So that's why we are talking about that. And Will, of course, he's an expert in this field. And yes, Will.
Well, thank you for such kind words, Fatima. You have the voice and presence of an angel. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that before, but thank you for such kind words. So yes, kind of in my journey over the last, couple of decades, Huey, one of the things that I find to be overlooked when I'm helping, new startup companies or, even some existing medium-sized companies is they always come to me and they go, well, we have these executives and how can we give them additional compensation that's tax deductible to us without just adding it to their paycheck, right? So, there's this thing out there called the Irs Section 162 bonus, and the reason why they call it that, it's actually an Irs section in the IRS code, right? And what that does is it allows companies on a discriminatory basis. So I want to talk about that for a minute. So most companies will have a 401k, and here in California and a lot of other states now, there's a requirement that companies will have to have 401ks going into next year, and those are given on a non-discriminatory basis. Meaning, as an example, if you have 100 employees, all the employees have to participate, and the matching has to be equal. So, for example, if the employer matches 6%. They have to match 6% to every employee across the board. So they can't go, well, we're going to give the CEO a 20% match in the 401k. Right. That's actually against federal law, specifically the Department of Labor. So then the question is, well, what can we do to give, an extra incentive in the way of bonus? Mm-hmm. So the 162 bonus uses life insurance, specifically cash value. So why is this important? It's important because the premium that the company pays builds up cash value on a tax-deferred basis, very similar to a 401k, right? So, I know a lot of executives, when you get into that higher income level, a lot of times they max out their 401ks in the first quarter of the year or very close to that, right? So then the question is, well, what do we do and how do we build up some more tax-deferred savings beyond the 401k? Because again, if you're in the high income level, you can't contribute to traditional IRAs and whatnot.
Right.
So the Section 162 is generally paid by the employer or the ownership group. It's tax deductible to them. That premium that is paid is taxed to the employee. Okay. But again, what happens is it goes into the cash value life insurance and it builds up on a tax deferred basis, right? Where some of these investment options that we have last year got a 42% return, right? So we take that money and there's a slew of life insurance, mutual fund options that we can choose from, right? And most of these are all Morningstar 4 and 5 star type funds. Okay. American funds are in there, Prudential funds, top 10 holdings, Netflix, Google, Visa, Amazon, right? Alphabet. So those companies, so they're very stable mutual funds, right? And that cash value grows over time. So there's a couple ways too that, the ownership group, the board of directors, if you will, can structure this too, which is the real kind of key on these things is when I have an executive, they're highly recruited by other companies, right? So how can I get this executive to stay for a certain period of time, right? So a lot of times these Section 162s are set up where, the ownership group, the board of directors are going to say as an example, okay, Huey, I want you to be the CEO, but we want you for 5 years, right? Because we got projects in the works and whatnot. We need to be sure that this gets followed through to the end, okay? Right. So we're going to, put $100,000 a year for 5 years into this cash value life insurance. So not only are you building up the cash value, tax deferred, but you also have additional life insurance. And that's another important thing too, because a lot of employer plans are limited on the amount of insurance they can offer people, right? So generally, for the most companies, the highest I've seen is about 10 times your base salary, right?
Right.
So the problem is if you're an executive and a lot of your compensation is going to be bonus based or it's going to be stock options based, that's not going to go into the calculation for life insurance. So one thing that we find with executives, they tend to be highly they don't have enough insurance, right, to cover their lifestyle or their spouse's lifestyle if something was to happen to them, right? So again, you have the cash value that builds up tax deferred. You have the additional life insurance, right? So then they could say, hey, the company, the ownership group, so Huey, we're going to give you $100,000 a year. You're going to have these benefits in the Section 162, but you're not going to have access to the cash value, and you're not going to vest, if you will, for 5 years, right? So that is probably one of the biggest benefits of the Section 162 is it allows, again, the ownership group, it allows the board of directors, if you will, when they have those key executives, they can use that 162 as a retention tool. Right?
Okay. And
one question that pop up in my mind is that, so how they can set up the detail. I know that they are able, the owner or the founder of the company or the top executives who is the decision maker is able actually inject some detail into this policy. For example, how should be their performance based on their performance, how much they're going to receive. Is that possible to
so you can
the contract?
Correct. So you can also set up some performance options in there as well. So for example, I could say, okay, Huey, we're going to give you up to $100,000 a year, but you need to hit these certain matrix, right? So example, the stock price, needs to go up $10 a share as an example to get the full 100, right?
Right.
If it doesn't hit the $10, then you only get half of it, right? So you can set up what we call performance matrix or bogeys in these plans as well, where they might get a little less or get a little more depending on how effective they are hitting those performance metrics or bogeys.
Okay. So we're talking about tax deferred basis, and I'm hearing a lot about taxes come up, and I know this is very important, especially if, for executives. So what are the tax implications for what we're discussing right now?
Yeah. So the tax implications to the ownership group, the board of directors of the company, is the premiums are fully tax deductible.
Okay.
So as an example, in our example here, Huey, if I give you $100,000 is the company ownership group, whatever, that's going to be 100% tax deductible to the company as any other expense would be. To the employee, it will be included in their W-2 as additional income. Okay. But now remember, the cash value builds up tax deferred. So here's where this gets to be important. So let's just say we're looking down the road, the future, right?
Right.
One of the problems with a 401k is that will be taxed eventually, right? So sometimes I get clients that say, hey, I'm never going to take the money out of my 401k. Well, the problem is when you hit age 74, the federal government requires you to take money out by forcing you to take what we call RMDs, which are required minimum distributions, which generally start at 3.95% of what the balance is in that account for that year ending, right? And then that percentage actually goes up over time. So for example, when you start hitting your late 90s, that 3.95% at age 74, when you're going to your 90s, it gets up to 16% almost. So that causes a couple of issues. Now, the first one is, again, it's the taxable event. So that money that you start drawing out of your 401k is going to be taxable to you as ordinary income, right? And the 401ks are not actually meant to be left to beneficiaries, to estates or your family, because again, they want you to spend it down. Let's just say, as an example, you have money in a 401k and you pass away and somebody inherits it. Well, a couple years back, they changed some of the rules on what we call inherited IRAs or inherited 401ks, meaning now that money has to be spent down within 10 years. So let's just say, as an example, you give that money to your son. You have $1 million, right? He's either going to have to liquidate that account on day one, which means that's $1 million of taxable income, right? So as you can imagine, that puts him at AMT tax levels, right? And with all that, he may be walking out with, and I'm not a tax professional, but depending on, the tax rates for the year, I've seen people walk out with 40%, right, of that $1 million. Or they have to take a tenth of it, right, or 10% of it every year, and then at year 10, take whatever the remaining balance is, right? So the big benefit of the Section 162 is not only do you have that tax-free death benefit, right? So when you pass away, they could use that death benefit to help compensate or pay the taxes due. Or like I tell folks, just give your family what they're due, right? Because a lot of people's mentality is if I have this X amount of money in my 401k that I want to leave, it's going to be taxed, right? So then you need to figure out what we call the gap of insurance, right? So that's where the insurance part of, but then the cash value as well. So let's just say you're in retirement and you're living well, you have that additional money in that Section 162 cash account that you can pull out that's going to be taxed to you as capital gains. And it will be taxed to you generally at long-term capital gains, right?
Right.
So that's going to be the huge difference in the taxation at the end.
Now, how do things look as far as like how much could be given to executives in the 401k plan? I know there's somewhat of a limitation, or is that not true?
Yeah, so there's limitations. So I know they just raised it to $20,500 of the employee contribution, and then the employer can actually match up to about 100%. So technically, people could put away $40,000 if you're age 50 or older. You can put an additional $6,500 is what we call a catch up. But again, the problem is once the employee or the executive maxes out, and again, let's just say the employer matches 6%. That's where we start running into some issues for the highly compensated executives, because you really can't give them anything more in the 401k, because again, the 401k is given on a non-discriminatory basis. So everybody from the CEO to the guy working in the stock room or the mail room, everything has to be equal and fair in the plan, where again, the benefit of the 162, it can be given on the discriminatory basis, meaning that the ownership group, the executives, the owners, founders, they can make the decision on who gets that 162, but they can also decide, again, as we kind of mentioned earlier, on what they want to give in the way of money and performance bonuses and whatnot, and again, as the retention. So going back to when we first started the show, Huey, if you and I and Fatima are sitting here and, we're executives of the company, and the ownership group says, hey, Huey, we're going to go ahead and, give you an executive bonus program, but we're going to give you $500,000 a year. And, we're going to give Will and Fatima, because they're lowly vice presidents, we're going to give them $100,000 a year, right? So they have the ability to be able to take it. Yeah, right. Who wouldn't take that? Right? I mean, the market's been down the last couple of days. We need a little extra money for that Bitcoin, right?
Right.
So, I'd take it too, right? But anyway, so that would be probably the greatest benefits of that 162 when you're looking at the, kind of the upfront or setting it up again. For those key executives, in order for as a retention and to give them a little something extra benefit beyond just the standard group 401k, stock options. Because that's the other thing too is when you start getting into some of the companies, you have stock options. There could be longer restrictions. I was dealing with a client the other day that works for a publicly held company, here in the Bay Area, well-known company. I won't mention it, but she has some restricted stock. She can't touch it for 10 years, right? With the executive bonus, again, you could set it up, and I haven't really seen where you have, anything more than 5-year kind of a retention clause or, the handcuff deal. Usually it's more common for that 3 to 5 years. So they can get that bonus money, maybe access it a little quicker in time than, maybe some of the stock options or stuff that they're given that could possibly be restricted.
Okay. So you've kind of, touched up on something that I wanted to ask next, right? Mm-hmm. What are some rewarding scenarios that the two of you have come across in this industry so far? You were just discussing a previous client of yours. I'm sure you come across a lot of rewarding situations and scenarios with your clients. Would you please name some or go over some of those details with us?
Yeah, so, believe it or not, and I don't want everybody to go quit what they're doing right now when I bring this up because, and I know there's a shortage of it, but there's some trucking companies that I have worked with in the past where they do a lot of profit sharing. So what they do is they'll have the standard 401k for the truck drivers, and they'll have profit sharing. As an example, I helped a client about right before the pandemic hit. So I think this is probably about probably about 2 years ago, actually. Okay. He was working for a trucking company, 70 years old, just wanted to retire because his back was getting hurt. And, just between, and this was a guy that never made more than, I think, about $85,000 a year. This guy had $2.5 million, in his profit sharing in his 401k, right? And, and that's one thing too that I see is, if I look at people, and we've managed, when I was at Prudential, for example, we managed UPS and the Federal Express 401k plans. And I was actually shocked. And, don't be mad because, some of those FedEx drivers might be worth more than you at certain points in time, right? I mean, some of these guys just have some huge 401ks, but it's just all about, when I asked them about it, was they always just did the same thing. They lived within their means and they just contributed, right? The max that they could to everything and just let the market do what the market does, right? They didn't overthink it. They didn't try to get crazy with the investments. They would just go in and pick a few of the investment options. That's what Fatima and I would, help them do. And, they would just, stay steady, as I say. And I look at, they may not have the level of retirement that, Fatima wants. So I know she shared some of her aspirations with me. But, I would say that, they're going to probably live a pretty good retirement than most.
Right. So, and that's without having any crypto in there.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, when you start talking about retirement plans, in the last few years, they've been totally against the cryptos. And in fact, there was a point in time, us as advisors really couldn't even talk about it. Like we were literally working with these big financial firms. They wouldn't even let us talk to clients about it. But I, just in kind of reading and seeing, it looks like they're going to start opening some things up possibly because now they're opening up some crypto indexes and stuff, which are relatively, probably safer, if you will. Meaning it's not too complicated for the average person to kind of understand. So you'll probably start seeing some of that stuff roll into 401k plans in the near future.
Wow, interesting. Okay, that's good to know. What about you, Fatima? Anything that you've seen that
regarding crypto?
How about this? Actually, how about this, Fatima?
I get so many questions that whoever learned that I'm a financial advisor quickly and suddenly they ask me, what do you think about crypto? How much should we put there? So, well, I have no idea because I'm not focused on crypto. And I said, if you want to do it, do it. I don't know.
All right, staying within your realms of competence. I love it. But actually, I have a question that I would love to ask you, matter of fact. And that's, you're clearly a woman in finance, and I know that's a major thing, but also it's not just the fact that you're a woman in finance, but you're from Iran, right? And I mean, that's even more unique. You've been in this country for about 10 years and you're just blazing a trail, right? So I like to hear, I like to hear more about that. How is this experience like for you?
I'm still not there where I want to be, but I'm very confident that where I am at right now is a very good place.
Right.
I'm very happy with that. And I know I have more to go to learn more and be more successful. But yeah, it's been a challenging road for me. It was not easy. So I put so much hours of studying, of working hard to get here. And then also staying very determined and very positive and being hopeful. Yeah. I never lost my hope. And, Huey, coming from, where you're from and me where I'm from is so we understand the value that we get here. We understand all the opportunities, and of course we don't want to go back. So all the challenges I welcomed. I I took care of them very well, and I look at them as an opportunity, and it helped me very, very much.
That's good. That's very good. And Will, you were discussing something a little bit earlier about just how simplistic this investment process is, as far as with the UPS drivers, FedEx drivers, and whatnot, and how they lived within their means, they contributed, they maxed out everything, and now they're looking at millions. What's really the psychology in retiring with money, right? Because it seems like there's a lot of flamboyance going on, and there's a lot of wanting to compete with the Joneses and all of these various things. What are some advices do you have for our startup community that's also having to invest into their startup, put a lot of capital into their, and then also wanting to make sure that they're good down the road as well?
Yeah, I would, I go back and, I'll go back to the 90s, and I always like to bring up the story of Apple. So many people, and, I'm kind of dating myself here, but Apple at
25, right?
Yeah, right. So Apple actually almost went out of business once. I don't know if people remember that in the 90s, and Bill Gates, Microsoft had to come in, and, I believe it was about $250-300 million that they had to, give Apple to keep them up. And I think I bought that stock at like $8, right?
Okay.
I was excited. Now, mind you, this is in the 90s, right? So this thing popped up once Bill Gates came in and saved them. This thing popped up to about $35. So I got all excited, right? I'm in the money. So I go ahead and sell that, and then I come home with a brand new car for my wife. So, I'm just a hero on all fronts. I made the wife happy, just made, 3 or 4 bagger on my investment, and I'm all excited.
Right.
And, this was in the 90s, and about, 2015, my wife asked me, she goes, "Hey, do you still got some of that Apple stock?" I go, "No, I sold to buy the car." She goes, "You're such a freaking idiot." So, I would say that, just stay the course, right?
Right.
I learned back then too, not to jump around with, good companies, right? I'll be truthful with you right now. I don't own any individual securities. All my money's in highly rated mutual funds, because, I want to focus on doing what I'm doing right now, talking to you. I played that game early on in my career where I was doing a lot of day trading, especially when, this thing called the internet came out. I know for most of your viewers, Huey, they think it's been around forever, but in fact, it has not been, right? So I, in the 95, 96, 97, I was, in the Bay Area. And so, obviously being in kind of the center of this technological revolution, we had access to probably more things than most other people did, right? And, got into day trading, and a lot of other friends did. And then, just the ebbs and flows and losing of money. So I would probably say just stay the course, do what you do best, save money, right? And don't think you can beat the market, right? Truthfully, I have graduate degrees in computational mathematics and finance. I have hedge fund friends that work in hedge funds, right? And, one of my friends employs over 100 mathematicians from MIT and Berkeley. So, like I tell people when they start wanting to talk about day trading, I go, if you want to play around with it, use a couple bucks, don't do your retirement account, because there's just no way that you're going to be able to beat some of these investment classes, right? But I know, there may be some counter thought on that because of GameStop and some of the things that have come up. I don't even know what GameStop is trading at today, but I just find, again, just focus on what you do, focus on what you do to make money, invest your money wisely, don't, and just kind of stay the course, if you will.
And live below your means.
Yeah. You
That's
got
a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. No, and I'll if we have time, Hugh, I'll give you a real life example, right? So in the Bay Area, a few years back, I went to an appointment with a client, the husband and wife, lived in Los Gatos, had a huge house worth millions of dollars. They were, making almost seven figures combined. They had less than $100,000 in savings or retirement. And the reason why, they had to have the brand new Beamers, right? They had to, have the big house. They had to have, it was ridiculous. I mean, they had the top of the line Beamers. They had to get into one every year. The kids had to go to the top private schools. They had to go out to eat every day. And, these people were in their mid 40s and they had less than $100,000. So I go and about a week later, go to another client that lives in Campbell, California, right? Kind of on the other side of the tracks, if you will. And, both of them were teachers. And kind of the same thing. They just started saving money young when they got out of college and they started becoming teachers, when they started teaching. They had a starter house. And then as the family grew, they went and bought another house. But they kept the starter house as a rental. Right. And then as the family grew again, they went into the third and final house. So, they had these two rentals that were paid off that were purchased as owner occupied homes. And, between their 403Bs and everything else, these people had well over $1 million. But because they worked for the school district, they had a pension also where they were going to be getting about $5,500 a month. Guaranteed on top of Social Security, on top of their savings, and on top of their, the rental houses that they had. So, that's where, again, you really kind of have to make that decision in life. Do you want to kind of keep up with that illusion or that false dream, right? Because, again, everything is about pain. And, right. When I look at and I talk to these folks about investing and saving, Huey, and the people that aren't saving, they don't want the pain today. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather have the pain now when I'm young and I can take it than when I'm, in my 60s and 70s. So that would, probably be my advice and, recommendation for folks, right?
Right. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just adding to that, I can understand this startup companies. Of course, they are bootstrapping. They are putting so much capital into their dream. And I'm sure many of them, they get where they want to be, but just look at the reality. So what percentage of the startups really succeed after 5 years? And it's a very, very small number. And don't forget about your future. We understand that's your dream, but don't forget about your future. And clock is on and it's running. It's running fast. So make sure, and we are here for that. We are here to help you guys, to advise you how much to contribute, how to contribute, where to invest, and don't overthink it. And as much as you're contributing into your startup, contribute into your own future, your family, your wife, your husband, your children.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
and I would
good one.
like to kind of further that a little bit because, when I'm dealing with folks that are starting up various types of businesses, I've dealt with folks starting financial services firms, believe it or not, right? Folks, starting tech companies, real estate, bio. And, sometimes the, vision is bigger than reality. And they think that, they're the ones that are going to hit it big, almost kind of like, we call it the gambler's fallacy, right? You're going to put all your money in there and you're going to be that guy that's going to be the lucky guy to, hit it big, right? And they dump all their money, they dump all their resources and they live on a lot of debt. They, spend beyond their means because they think that, in the future, I'm going to get this big paycheck, right? And, that can be done at a huge detriment, right? So I would say, until that gets cashed in, that lottery ticket gets cashed in, just live well within or below your means, just so you don't overextend yourself financially.
Well, we could drop the mic on that. I mean, awesome advices back one after another. So if you're paying attention, I hope you are. But if you're paying attention, I mean, that's just solid advice right there and very practical. I really appreciate the insights that you guys have shared here with us in our community. What's the best way to reach you, whether it's LinkedIn or by email, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so, I'll shout out my personal cell phone number. I only have one phone, right, because I enjoy talking to people. So anytime that you want to invite me on the show, Huey, I'll be more than happy to join you there. But my personal cell is 916-753-5875. And then my email address is real simple. My personal email address is my first and last name. So it's William, WILLIAM, CERING @gmail.com.
And yourself, Fatima?
Great. And my cell phone is 831-224-0524, and I'm coming from Carmel. This is my phone numbers. I get so many questions regarding that. So again, 831-224-0524, and my personal email is my initial first name, F as in Frank, and my last name would be N as in Nancy, A Apple, Q as in Queen, I India, N Nancy, I India, A Apple @gmail.com.
Okay. Well,
yeah, of course, we leave you our information with you, Huey. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll be sure to add your social media information in the links below as well. So again, it's been a pleasure to have you two on today. Appreciate you for joining us.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Huey. And I really hope that we were able to add some good content and some, value to your listeners out there. So again, thank you for your time and your viewers' time. And it was a pleasure to be here with you today.
Most certainly.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.